Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. We've got a lot of news piling up, and I only ended up getting through two very big items today. What a mess. Missing yesterday's episode didn't help, but it was my birthday. Damn things just won't stop. Well, I guess I shouldn't want them to, huh? Anyway, time must be made for cake and all that, especially when my girlfriend makes it. Have you had homemade butterscotch sauce? It is amazing. Now let's get going so I can start on the next episode. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. Biden has unveiled his $6 trillion budget proposal for fiscal year 2022, which includes the American Jobs Plan and American Families Plan in it. It also includes raising the corporate tax rate to 28% and capital gains taxes to 40%. Even so, it brings the deficit up to $1.8 trillion for 2022 and $1 trillion annually over the next decade. In 2030, it would reverse and begin reducing the deficit by increasing amounts in the following years, shrinking deficits by more than $2 trillion over following decades. In addition to the American Jobs and Families Plan, the budget consists of increased funding for infrastructure, education, research, public health, paid family leave, child care, $15 minimum wage for federal contractors, addressing gun violence, community policing, body cameras, policing domestic terrorism, reducing immigration demand and improving immigration processing, cybersecurity, climate change, housing assistance, the opioid epidemic, and a new health research agency focused on diseases like cancer. Yeah, she a big boy. This budget is a New Deal type commitment to upfront investment in physical and social infrastructure to secure long-term gains for the country. However, it still does not include the most effective form of social infrastructure, recurring unconditional checks to the people. This is an initial proposal which will undoubtedly see many concessions and alterations before being passed. Make your voice heard. By contrast, the GOP said their much smaller budget will not raise taxes, but they lied. Their bill actually cuts the expanded child tax credit, the UBI for kids. They won't take money from the rich, but they have no problem taking money away from starving children. When somebody tells you the parties are the same, think on this. Their infrastructure bill also appropriates pandemic relief funds and proposes a tax on electric vehicles, which would make no sense when we are currently subsidizing EVs because we want to help the private sector develop that technology as quickly as possible. Not impressed. Despite a 54 to 35 vote, Senate Republicans successfully shut down the investigation into the Capitol riot via filibuster. 6 Republican senators voted in favor: Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rob Portman, Mitt Romney, and Ben Sasse, essentially the same crew that voted to impeach Trump for incitement of insurrection. All other Republicans voted against. Senator Toomey was not present but said that he would have supported the bill, leaving it still short 5 votes. McConnell has argued ongoing investigations by congressional committee and the DOJ are sufficient, but he has also said multiple times that he just wants to move on from the insurrection. This bill would have created a bipartisan independent commission with no elected officials, very similar to the 9/11 Commission, which passed with overwhelmingly bipartisan support. Democrats accommodated Republicans' requests regarding the January 6th Commission bill, leaving no excuse for opposing it, but that didn't turn out to matter. The greater GOP, including McConnell, previously expressed support for the bill before flipping their position prior to the vote, citing various reasons, including a desire to focus on midterm elections, prompting Lisa Murkowski to ask, quote, "Is that really what this is about? One election cycle after another?" End quote. It's pretty clear that the GOP simply want to put the shameful consequences of their own actions behind them to avoid accountability and for political gain, even if it comes at the cost of dereliction of duty. McConnell even went so far as to ask all GOP senators to vote against the commission as a personal favor to him. To be clear, this is McConnell asking U.S. senators to serve him instead of their country and constituents, with an implied threat of retribution from one of the most powerful politicians in the country if they do not. Republicans' blatant abuse of the filibuster to obstruct justice for their own gains has renewed calls to eliminate it. Senator Joe Manchin, just before the vote, renewed his refusal to allow democracy to function. After the vote, Manchin told reporters he is very frustrated by the outcome and that he believed more Republicans would have voted to advance the bill if not for McConnell's manipulations, adding, quote, "The betrayal of the oath we take is something Republicans will have to live with," end quote. Unfortunately, it's something we will all have to live with. Manchin will also have to live with his own betrayal of the American people, as he and a couple others are the ones ensuring that the GOP can shut down Congress without consequence. The only chance of them making any real efforts at bipartisan legislation is if they believed obstruction could result in their tool of obstruction being taken away. You don't get change without some sort of accountability. If you haven't checked out my thread on why the filibuster is toxic to democracy, please give it a look in the links. It's an incredibly important subject. Senator Schumer indicated that he might force another vote on the bill at a later time, and Pelosi could push through these sorts of hearings that the GOP couldn't get enough of when the attacks against America were not conducted by the GOP and their constituents, such as the 9/11 Commission or the 33 hearings on Benghazi, or even the dozens of hearings on Hillary's emails. Next episode will fit in some UBI news, I promise, but for now, that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the budget and filibuster threads. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.